You know, every single trader, I don't care if you're a total beginner or a seasoned pro, you grapple with this one fundamental question. How big should my next trade be? And your answer to that question really separates the amateurs from the professionals, and it might not be what you think. So today, let's break down a method that completely shifts the goal from just maximizing growth to instead guaranteeing survival.
So, let me ask you this directly. Are you focused on hitting home runs every time you step up to the plate? Or are you just focused on getting to play another inning, another day, another year? It's a subtle difference, but trust me, it makes all the difference in the world.
And here it is, the core mindset shift. See, the amateur asks, how much money can I make on this thing? But the professional asks a totally different question. How can I make absolutely sure I don't get wiped out? One is all about chasing a dream scenario. The other is planning for a harsh but very real reality.
To really get why this shift is so important, we first have to look at a super popular but often dangerously misused tool. I'm talking about the Kelly Criterion.
I'm sure you've probably heard of it. It's this famous mathematical formula that's designed to find the perfect position size to maximize the long-term growth of your money. And, on paper, it sounds absolutely perfect. What could be better?
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. For Kelly to work its magic, it has to live in this perfect fantasyland world. A world where your wins and losses are totally predictable, where you can somehow withstand massive gut-wrenching drawdowns on your way to growth, and where you've got infinite time and capital.
But that's not the real world, is it? In volatile markets, think about something like short-dated options, your returns don't fall a neat little bell curve. They're skewed. You get these things called fat tails, which are basically those rare but absolutely catastrophic losses that can just blow you up. And unlike the theory, you can definitely go broke in the real world.
And that's the brutal, honest truth about optimizing purely for growth. The formula is just math. It's relentlessly focused on that long-term mathematical optimum, and it simply does not care if the path to get there involves you losing everything first.
So, if Kelly isn't the answer, then what is? Well, we need to flip this entire problem on its head. We've got to build a new model from the ground up, and we're going to start with one non-negotiable principle: survival.
And this is what we call survival probability sizing. We are no longer trying to find the perfect size to maximize our growth. Forget that. Instead, our only goal is to find the size that keeps our risk of ruin, our risk of getting knocked out of the game for good, below a threshold that we get to define right up front.
Now, I know this might look a little intimidating with all the letters, but it's actually a really simple and powerful idea. All this is saying is that the probability of our account dropping by a certain amount d over a certain number of trades n must be less than or equal to our acceptable failure rate, which we're calling epsilon.
So let's break that down. D isn't your account going to zero. No way. It's the maximum pain you can personally tolerate, say a 30% drawdown. N is your time frame. Maybe it's the next 200 trades you're going to make. And epsilon? That's your red line, the chance of failure you're willing to live with, like, say, 1%. The point is, you define the rules of the game.
And this is the bottom line, right here. It doesn't matter how great your trading edge is. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If there is a non-trivial chance that a bad run of luck can wipe you out, that edge will never get the chance to play out in the long run.
Okay, so we get the philosophy. Now let's get practical. How do you actually do this? Well, it all comes down to a clear 5-step process.
We're going to walk through each of these, but here's the quick blueprint. You define your failure point, you set your time window, you really understand your real-world returns, you test out a bunch of different sizes, and then you just pick the one that keeps you safe.
First up, and this is probably the most important step of all, death is not your account hitting zero. For a real trader, death is a 30% drawdown that gets your boss on the phone. It's a margin call that forces you to liquidate positions. It can even be that psychological point where you just can't take the pain anymore and you quit. You have to define this number for yourself.
Second, we are not planning for infinity. That's a trap. We're planning for the here and now, where a bad string of luck can do the most damage. So pick a realistic horizon. A month of trading, maybe 200 trades, that's a great example. It's a time frame where variance is a very real threat.
Now, this step is where this method gets all of its power. We throw out simple averages and we look at our actual trading results. So yeah, you might have your normal wins and your normal losses, but what about those rare, devastating -3R losses? A loss 3 times your initial risk that maybe happened 5% of the time. Those are the ones that cause ruin, and they absolutely must be in your model.
So with all our parameters set, we can now simulate. And look, we're not doing some complex optimization. We're just asking a simple question over and over again through thousands of computer simulations. If I risk, say, 2% of my account per trade, how often do I actually hit my 30% drawdown limit within those 200 trades?
The simulation then gives you this incredibly clear table of choices. As you can see, if you risk 2%, your chance of ruin is 6%, way too high if your goal was 1%. At 1.5%, it's still too high. But at 1.2% risk per trade, boom, the probability drops to 0.8%. That's inside your tolerance. That's your size. You just pick the largest size that satisfies your own survival constraint. It's that simple.
All right, let's pull back and look at the big picture for a second. This isn't just a formula. It's a fundamental philosophy about how to approach the markets like a professional. Ultimately, it really comes down to this. Amateurs size their positions based on how much they hope to win. But professionals, they size based on the worst streak of bad luck they can plausibly imagine having to endure. They plan for the pain.
And that's the ultimate trade-off, isn't it? Yeah, you might grow your account a little bit slower than what some magic formula promises, but in exchange, you drastically increase the odds that you'll still be here next month, and next year, and the year after that, to keep on compounding. Survival is the bedrock that all long-term growth is built upon. So I'll just leave you with this question. Are you swinging for the fences, hoping for that one incredible year that sets you up for life, even if it means you might strike out permanently? Or is your goal to consistently show up, play the game well, and compound thousands of good decisions over a long career? The answer to that question will define exactly how you size your very next trade.